Hi, I'm Jiaqi Gao. This is my presentation of Introduction to Modern Western Literature. To begin with, the first question I want to explain is the ideas of the absolute that used in the Romantic era and after. Firstly, I want to talk about Lord Byron. Byron talks a lot about love in his poem. He argues that love is absolute. Love is something that they earn for or something they lose. In his opinion, people do not just try to find love in someone else, but they try to find the absolute in others. Moreover, Byron emphasizes that the absolutes are not the cases in one person, but it is sustainable in few cases. In his poems, we can see the word love is put in uppercase because they're absolutes. Love and passion are absolute that people strive for in the Romantic era. It sounds like the opposite way of neoclassic era. Secondly, Giacomo Leopardi is another person who emphasizes the aware of beauty and absolutes. In his poem, he writes like, "Now will you rest forever, my tired heart." That is the last deception. As we can see, he expresses the feeling of no hope, and he argues that the death and sadness can be absolutes. The third person I want to talk about is Emily Dickinson. She talks more about the ideas of death and absolutes. In her poems, he writes that I died for beauty, but was scared. In her point of view, people die for truth, and the absolute way present, so we die for the same cause because it's it's noble. She she argues that the death is not sad, but it's like a process. But the one she emphasizes that the death is an absolute. Okay, now I'm going to explain what the realism is. Generally, realism is a kind of genre which tries to paint things, write things, and show things how they are as they're realistic. Realism differs from romanticism. Realism focuses more on observation and more like a reproduction of the reality. What's important is the fact rather than the feeling of the writers. Therefore, realism talks less about heroes or some incredible crazy things. For more realistics, realism means the reality of contemporary life and manners which is more objective. For example, Guy de Maupassant is a realism writer who focuses on portraits of human behaviors and objective realism. He writes about the objective realism and different classes. Additionally, he put his attention more on the importance of external appearance rather than his mind or his feeling. For example, he writes about a patriotic Pole and some other upper classes people who are hypocritical to contrast. But he writes more about the story itself rather than his own feeling. Lastly, the question I'm interested in is the awareness of time for those writers. The first person I want to mention is William Wordsworth. In his poem on revisiting the banks of the Wye during a tour, he writes that 5 years have passed, 5 summers with lengths of 5 long winters. In his idea, he used time as a friend. 5 years later, he came back to the place and he can feel more. Another person who talks a lot about moment is Alphonse de Lamartine. He emphasizes the importance of deepest intuitions in his writing. In his poem The Lake, he writes that he met a woman in a lake and hoped to see her again. However, the woman got an ill and died. Thus, he failed to see her again. She shows his reflection on the poem and says that time is fleeting, time is not lasting. He wants to internalize the moment of happiness and stop the passenger of time. However, as we can see, no one can stop it. So he nearly blamed on time and asked why happy time goes so fast, while sad time goes so slow. As a result, he shouts for give his happiness time back. The next person I want to talk about is Percy Shelley. He talks about the moment and the future. He talks about poem is a recorder of the happiness moment and the ideas of what we die within the fall, but we come again with the spring because we need new things. So he shows his hope, his idea of hope in his poem during the circle of seasons. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? The last person I want to mention is Rosalie de Castro. She uses season as the measurement of time. He used seasons to reflect how time passes so fast, and it is really not fair. Her poem starts with spring after winter, so everything is new and beautiful. The feet of spring are austere. Her breath is sweat. With the summer and knew her time is imminent. In autumn I shall die. So in his poem she shows her ideas that she wants to die at the right season. Therefore, she used these seasons like the measurement of time. Okay, this is my presentation. Thank you for listening.